Okay, welcome back. We're talking about the CAPEC thing. So here is a common attack pattern classification thing. And it's actually, come on, a pretty cool list if you go through and look at the latest version of the things, you know, view by mechanism, view by, all this kind of good stuff. View by, supply chain, mobile, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just going to click on one of these guys talking about, accessing functionality not constrained and, inducing account lockout. I could do that. All I have to do to lock your account out at the university is to put your name in and make a bogus password 3 times and it'll lock out your account. Is that easy to do? Anybody can do it, right? Anyway, so this is just kind of a cool list of threats and capabilities and attack patterns. So you need kind of sort of a classification system to kind of keep up with this thing. So now let's talk about actual threat sources, not perceived threat sources. Okay. So here's one of the things that people really talk about. Okay. Compromise to intellectual property. That's a real category of threat that we need to deal with. So we're talking about, stealing intellectual properties or downloading a movie or getting a PDF of the textbook even though you're supposed to pay for it. Okay, that kind of stuff. Deviations in quality assurance. Now that's a horrible term because what that really means is the website is down. Okay, does that sound like the website is down? Like there's a power outage or somebody cut the fiber, that kind of stuff. Espionage or trespass, yeah, okay. Forces of nature, fire, flood, etc. Human error, oh yeah, big time. Information extortion, yeah, ransomware, sabotage, disgruntled employees, software attacks, viruses, technical failures, technical software failures, etc., etc., etc. And technological obsolescence. For example, there are some embedded versions of Windows XP still out there. Maybe it's running like your ATM, or maybe a little kiosk where you do your stick your card in or tap the card thing. That is, some of those things are getting kind of old. I went to the hospital recently and I could see on the screen that they were using some ancient version of Windows 7 on their desktop because they hadn't upgraded yet. Like, yeah. Okay, so the first one on page 34, the compromise to intellectual property. So first of all, what is intellectual property? You could look at it from, a copyright. It's a work of art, that kind of thing. Or it just could be anything. It could be your price list, your customer list, that kind of stuff, intellectual property. Now, see, here's the problem with piracy. We've talked about this before. We'll talk about it again. In the old days, theft was designed of, I no longer have possession or it's been destroyed. Okay? That's the definition of theft. We had to change that because piracy doesn't fit that mold. Piracy doesn't destroy the car or remove the car out of your driveway. It just copies the car. Okay? So the Software and Information Industry Association, they have like a bounty program. If you can find and patch a location where somebody's, put stuff out on the internet, you can actually get some money. So copyright protection. So there are things as digital watermarks. You could have like like on a video, you could have a little stripe that goes across it, that says internal use only or something like that. A license agreement, maybe you have to sign something or do something, or some sort of online registration. But for copyright to be enforced, do I have to claim that the work is copyrighted? The answer is no. If I create a graphic and put that graphic out on the web, it's mine and it's copyrighted. If you use it, I can come after you. Okay? So let's talk about the how far people have gone in the opposite direction. There's a crazy story about Sony back in the day where they were selling CDs with music, right? And they did not want you to rip the songs off the CD and put them on your computer, pull off the MP3 files. And so they came up with this crazy, digital rights management scheme where they had software on the CD that when you stuck the CD into the tray, it would alter your system so that you could not copy the files. Now, it turned out that really pissed off an awful lot of people, not because of privacy issues and intellectual properties. It's because the whole technique called a rootkit was really damaging to Windows. So it's a crazy story. They went too far. So deviations in quality of service, page 37. So, we're really talking about the services that your business performs, right? Like you're open for business. So a slow internet, would that be a deviation in quality of service? Yeah. So severe weather or accidents or attacks, right? So here's a crazy thing. How do you know if I can't get to something? How do I know whether or not I'm the only one? I mean, you call them on the phone and, hey, I can't get to, whatever the name of the place is. Well, luckily, there's a really cool place called Down Detector. And you can go in here and put something in. I mean, I'm going to put in like Google or somebody. And it, okay. And it basically talks about whether or not something is down. My search didn't work all that well. But it looks like YouTube took a blip sometime. I'm going to click on that one just for particular. Oh. So it looks like this morning they had quite a few reports of some issues. So this is a cool thing. Down Detector is kind of cool. So network outage reporting system, cool. You could have a service level agreement, an SLA, that basically says, I have a guaranteed uptime. Now, guaranteed, in this case, does not mean I swear on a stack of Bibles it'll never go below 96%. What that means is, if it goes below 96%, I'm going to refund some of your money. So guarantee is not really the same thing as I would call a guarantee. But I will tell you that, in 2013, Amazon went down for about 30 minutes. Now, Amazon's a big company, right? And they think that they actually lost about $3 billion with a B dollars in revenue because people could not order things for 30 minutes. Okay, so, deviations in quality of service, yeah. Okay, here's another crazy story. Let's say you have a small business, and yet, I don't know, at lunchtime, everyone gathers and watches some soap opera or something over the internet. But what's happening is you got 5 or 6 people pulling the streaming services down. It's going to degrade the internet for the rest of your customers. And so is that a deviation in quality of service? Yeah, your customers can't get in because there's too much traffic caused by your own employees. Okay. So continuing on page 39, they talk about espionage or trespass. Now, this is not quite the same as theft, but it's so unauthorized access would be a good category of this, right? So it could be something low tech, like it's called shoulder surfing. I look over somebody's shoulder and see what they got on their computer. Maybe they got a price list up on the computer, and I'm just wandering by and I go, oh, so that's how much you're paying for that. Okay. I have seen people do privacy screens on computers. Now, this would probably be a limited thing, particularly if you're in a public place. How about the little plastic shields on the little kiosk when you're doing your typing in your PIN number? A little cup, kind of like a cover, so the person standing next to you, can't see the numbers you're punching in. And that happens at the grocery store, but not like at the gas pump, because the assumption is no one's standing next to you at the gas pump, right? But they are in the grocery store. Okay. Automatic locking. A lot of companies have a really cool thing like an ID badge or something that you carry around on a lanyard. And there's a proximity detector, and as soon as you get up and walk away from your computer, it locks the screen, or at least obscures the screen. So having a Bluetooth proximity detecting system, ooh, that would be kind of cool. That would keep people from accidentally viewing something. So obviously we are talking about, some high-tech examples too. I mean, a hacker. By the way, hacker is a horrible term. It's kind of a de facto standard, but it's not exactly what happens in Hollywood, right? I mean, it's not exactly the same. So one of the things you could do is you could invite hackers to test out a new system. This has been done on the internet. They have a bug bounty program there saying, okay, guys, beat on it for a couple of days. And if you can break in, great, we'll give you money. You could hire penetration testers, hire a company who specializes at probing and poking around at your system to find out if there's vulnerability. Yeah. So there's this really cool story. Hang on. So what are the causes of downtime? Power failures? Yeah. Hardware failures? Yeah, you could have that. Network issues, flood, human error, software, fire, hurricanes, etc., etc., etc. But it's almost always power. And of course, we're going to be talking about this in the upcoming chapter in a little more detail. But yeah, I mean, the electrical power generation, and you should probably have a generator, and maybe you should have an uninterrupted power supply. So that's 3 levels, right? The original source, a generator is an alternate source, and an uninterrupted power supply is to handle the transition between the two. Okay. So I'm going to skip the part about hacker exploits because that's coming up in a lot more detail. So escalation of privileges. So it starts out, a person has legitimate access to something, right? They're a user and they have access to whatever data they're supposed to have. Like if you're an HR person, you have access to people's sensitive data, right? So it's fairly obvious that most people don't have admin rights on big systems, right? The average user is not going to have administrator rights. We kind of gone past that since Windows XP days where everyone was an administrator. Okay. So perhaps you just need permissions or authentication for a short period of time. So maybe you can make a deal with the IT folks saying, hey, temporarily promote me. I need to do this, and after about 30 minutes, you feel free to drop me back down. I've done that before. Okay, so escalation of privileges. So most of the time, we're talking about somebody has figured out an exploit. So they have privilege A, but they figured out how to make it go to privilege B. Okay, that's typically what we're talking about. But let's talk about, again, kind of an intellectual property discussion. Let's talk about jailbreaking your phone. Jailbreaking means I have a phone, maybe it's an Android or an Apple device, and I want to break it, so to speak, so that I could go in and make changes to the operating system that is not allowed by the manufacturer. So is jailbreaking your phone legal or not? And the story is complicated, okay? The people who handle intellectual property at the Copyright Office belongs to the Library of Congress, which is kind of a strange location, but nevertheless. And they produce a list of exceptions. And every year for quite some time, they've put an exception in there that says, yes, you can break your phone. Now, they didn't mention anything at all about an iPad. So, can you jailbreak an iPad? Probably not. Okay? So, that is kind of crazy. So, a cracker, hacker and cracker, again, this is Hollywood terms. We're going to come up with a little better terms. Basically talk about removing copyright protection. I have a copyright protected PDF file, it's encrypted, and somebody goes in with some routine and they crack the encryption. And so now the PDF file doesn't require a password, that kind of thing. Password protected zip file. Those are other examples. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark. So as usual, we'll pause this and we'll begin again in just a few.